before 2010, the FIFA Soccer World Cup started, there was a lot of optimism. A lot of optimism on decisions by the government. A lot of optimism what will happen to and boost, or how FIFA would boost all those little cities and the societies and communities around the stadiums. I think the 2010 Soccer World Cup is still a question and a problem in the country in South Africa. People still discuss 2010, the broken promises of FIFA, the broken promises of the cities, the broken promises of the government. So people still discussing it, and as we all know, there are still discussions in most bigger cities in South Africa what is going to happen with the white elephants, with the stadiums. Job creation was there for sure during the World Cup and even before with construction workers. During the World Cup, a lot of people worked as servants, worked as gardeners, and worked as people helping the tourists around. Otherwise, afterwards, all those jobs have been lost, and that is definitely a problem. It had a positive effect for South Africa. South Africa, PR-wise, came back into the focus. After 1994, the first free and fair elections in South Africa, when Nelson Mandela became president of a democratic South Africa. Now, in 2010, South Africa came back into the focus, into the limelight, as a country which is able to organize such a big event, a World Cup. And that, of course, convinced a number of investors to go to South Africa. That was a disappointing point, definitely. People thought it would boost the economy, and they boost the economy for a longer period than just a few weeks or a few months, and that did not happen at all. Afterwards, one saw it was just a bit of hot air, which just then escaped into the wild, nothing else. People thought it would create more jobs, would create sustainable jobs, it would create a longish interest in the country for tourists, and just the opposite happened. Even during the World Cup, the numbers of tourists dropped and did not increase. Most of the foreigners thought the prices are now increasing, price will be high, and things will be overbooked, so they decided, well, perhaps we go to South Africa the year after, so 2011, 2012. And that's what happened, and people were a bit disappointed that all the big business being promised specifically by FIFA did not happen at all. The only person or the only organization making a lot of money was, by the way, FIFA, some American breweries, and Coca-Cola soft drinks, and perhaps Hyundai, but even that one is not absolutely convincing. Actually, just the opposite. Most of the vendors even felt that the FIFA is a powerful organization, since they have been beaten up by policemen on behalf of FIFA. They did not realize that this is not a South African World Cup, but a FIFA World Cup, as Mr. Blatter said, accidentally happening in South Africa. So they all thought that one could perhaps sell whatever nice things and gifts to tourists, but they were not allowed because that was a FIFA business. So FIFA flew in a lot of tourist items, either from China or from other Asian countries, sometimes even from other African countries, but definitely not locally produced things. So all the people who had produced a number of items to sell to the tourists just were not allowed to sell them. I think most of the people booked via international FIFA agencies. So they slept in the big hotels, or perhaps having the money in a boutique hotel. All the others who really thought, well, the smaller B&Bs or even the B&Bs in the townships would make a lot of money, that did not happen at all. It was also the mega companies, the hotshots in the tourism industry, like Sun International. They made a lot of money, and even them, they had to give a percentage to FIFA. The disappointment about not having traditional South African food and a traditional South African beer, that is still there, and during and after the World Cup, that was obvious to feel that people feel betrayed, because a number of young South Africans thought, well, now we can at least make some bucks with selling some bottles of beer or some cans of beer, and they were not allowed by FIFA. So that was more than disappointing. That what I call lost promises, and promises not kept at all. Well, nowadays only a few stadiums are really used. I think the frequent used stadium is still Ellis Park in Johannesburg, being used for international tournaments, sometimes for big concerts, and all the others are more or less empty and just produce costs to maintain them. I think the best example is either Rustenburg or even Cape Town. Well, we all know that the Cape Town Stadium is situated directly in front of Table Mountain, and it's not a very beautiful view. Definitely it is not our stadium being used for soccer each and every weekend, because it's much too expensive to rent it, and it's not in the city center. So the people loving soccer are outside the city center, not in the city bowl. That's more or less Khayelitsha, Blue Downs and other areas of Cape Town. So more or less this stadium is empty and is just costing taxpayers money, money lost to the society. I think most of the 2010 stadiums currently get rotten day by day, specifically those ones like Rustenburg and others. The only company still making a bit of money out of it is FIFA. So I perfectly understand the City Council of Cape Town thinking about why not taking down the stadium and just demolishing it, and well, perhaps having a park there or another tourist attraction, which makes more sense compared to this, well, White Elephant Stadium. When it comes to self-confidence, yes, it was successful. Specifically, South Africans then afterwards have been very proud what they have achieved. They have achieved that there was a successful World Cup, that there was a very successful tournament, more or less organized by themselves. Even the stadiums have more or less been built by themselves. So that was, for the moral of the South African, the idea of a rainbow nation, very helpful. And perhaps it is still helpful, even in the difficult situation where South Africa is currently in. It was also very helpful that the world saw a nation standing together and demonstrating that this is not a third world country or even a fourth world country, but that is the same level compared to other countries. And that was a success on its own. So yes, in that regard, the Soccer World Cup was very successful. It showed the world that it's now time for Africa.